The daily Rambam shir will begin in a few moments, in a few minutes.
Afternoon, Rabbi.
Hello, good afternoon, welcome.
How are you?
Good you.
Good, thank God. You had a good weekend with the family over?
Following my family movements.
No, I was chatting to Rabbi Darren on yesterday on his call, so I know where he was. He told me where he was. Didn't follow.
Where are you?
I'm in Cape Town. I go to Rabbi Darren Shaw.
Ah, okay.
So and he told me where he was. It wasn't just if I was following his movements.
That's fine, that's fine.
No, they told me they were over there. I think he was doing these 9:30 call at your house on the
Yes,
weekend.
I heard him giving a number of shiurim from my house.
Yes, he was.
Okay. I'm glad you're a follower.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Trying to get this organized there. There we go. Okay. Now, where's everybody else?
Yes, can hear and can see you, Rabbi. Good.
Hello,
Good.
Dave. I see and hear you. Thank you.
Good. Shavua Tov.
Growing a beard.
Well, it's just overgrowth. It's not really a beard.
I thought you're giving me competition.
Yeah, I'm trying. I've got a long way to go. I have a nephew that we saw last night on a family Zoom get together for my sister's 90th birthday, and he's got a beard twice as long, maybe 3 times as long as yours. A white one, white beard. Moshe Miller.
Moshe Miller's white already?
Yes.
Oh, my.
He's got a much larger forehead than you, like mine.
He's younger than me.
Yes, yes.
All right. Okay, we'll start in a moment.
Hello, Rabbi.
People are still arriving. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, David.
Hello, everybody. Hi, David. Hi, Jeff.
Shavua Tov and Chodesh Tov.
Do you see the text that I'm moving?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you learn about Mimer yesterday?
I had to miss yesterday. I don't know.
Yes.
Anybody was here yesterday? Did you learn about Mimer? Does the word Mimer mean anything to you?
No, we didn't. I don't think we went through Mimo. We were going through more around the The shoe, the shoe, yes.
You
That's
did
we
the
were
ceremony yesterday?
I think we went all the way up until 20. Sure, I can't remember how. Rabbi Green was going through them so quickly in 33 minutes.
Well, we have 30 halachas here to get through, and I have to try and do this in 30 minutes myself, which is not going to be easy.
I know he went through all 35 yesterday.
Rabbi, can you scroll all the way up to number 1, please?
Yes, I will in a moment.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I'm going to start because, as I say, there's a lot to get done. And so welcome, Jeff, Kent, Stephen, and we are ready to roll with or without others who may arrive late. So we continue with the laws of Yibum and Chalitza, which I did the first chapter on Thursday because I swapped days last week because of a funeral. So this is now chapter 5. You've already done other stuff. And basically, the choices are Yibum, that the brother of the deceased marries his brother's widow to rebuild his late brother's house, or if they don't like each other, they don't want to get married, then he gives her chalitza, the removal of the shoe ceremony, which is something like a divorce. And only after she has chalitza may she then marry a stranger. Otherwise, she is bonded to the late husband's family, if he has brothers. Okay, just a reminder that everybody should have their heads covered for the shir. Halacha 1, when a yavam gives a yavama a bill of divorce, a get, he disqualifies her and all of his deceased brother's other wives, because there was polygamy in those days, from performing yibum with him or any other of the brothers. It's considered as if he has performed chalitza with her. So really a get does not come into this. A get will only come into this if the yavam, the brother of the deceased, marries the widow. And then after a certain amount of time, they decided they don't like each other, they want to get divorced, then they'll give a normal get. But at this point in time, when the brother dies and childless, and there are other brothers, at least one, then either he does yibum, meaning he marries the widow, or chalitza, he separates the bond. Why would he give a get? Get is the wrong thing to do. A get is if you're married to somebody. They are bonded. There is a connection between them. She may not marry a stranger, but they're not married yet. And therefore, a get is the wrong thing to do. But if he does the wrong thing and he gives her a get, he thereby disqualifies her and all his deceased brothers' other wives from performing yibum with him or with any other brothers. It's considered as if he has performed chalitza with her. The power of a get to affect yivama is rabbinic because the rabbi said, since a get has the power to bring about the divorce of a normal married woman, every get causes a woman to be disqualified from the priesthood. A divorcee may not marry a kohen. So the rabbis decreed that it should also disqualify a yivama from performing yibum. So she's not permitted to marry another man, however, until she has chalitza with one of the brothers. So the get is not good enough. She needs chalitza to marry a stranger. A get will not do. Number 2, a statement of intent. Mimer. Mimer means a statement. Here it means a statement of intent to marry. So the yavam, the brother-in-law, states his intention. Yes, okay, he's going to marry her, the widow. But stating alone does not affect the establishment of a marriage bond and does not cause her to become a married woman in the full sense. Nevertheless, if he desires to nullify the mimer, his statement, he must give her a get. And then for her to marry another man, however, she still has to have chalitza. So what does that mean? When the Yavam gives a mimer to his Yavama, he makes the official statement that he plans to marry her, but does not desire to engage in sexual relations with her. He must write a get for her, since she was consecrated unto him by the statement, and he must perform chalitza with her to cause her to be permitted to others. So we did learn in the first chapter that they don't need a chuppah. You remember I told you that? They don't need a chuppah, they don't need a dinner dance, they don't need flowers, decor, caterers. He just has to begin living with her. He has to be intimate with her. Being intimate with her, that is putting his money where his mouth is. That means he is marrying her. He is doing yibum. Later, if they don't like each other, then he has to give her a get. Or Yavama is not permitted to marry another man. She, the widow, may not marry another man unless she enters into sexual relation with her Yavam and then is divorced or widowed, or if she performs chalitza. A get disqualifies her from Yibum, but is not permitted to marry anyone else. A mimer, a statement of intent by the brother-in-law to marry her, does not affect the marriage bond in a complete sense, as sexual relations do. When they live together as man and wife, then the Yibum connection has been formalized completely. 4. If he makes the statement of intent, the mimer, then he gives her a get to nullify it. He has negated what he brought about. And the Yavama is free to perform Yibum, perhaps with another brother. It appears to me, says the Rambam, that she is free only to perform Yibum with his brothers, but she is forbidden to him. When a Yavam gives a get to his Yavama to nullify his connection and not to nullify his mimer, he disqualifies her from performing Yibum with him and his brothers, as stated above. But again, until she gets chalitza, she may not marry a stranger. 6. When a mimer is given to a Yavama at the outset, he declares his intent to marry her without its having been preceded by any other activity, without having followed by any, and was not followed by any activity other than the sexual relation between the Yavam and the Yavama. The mimer is referred to as an acceptable mimer, meaning he did it right. He stated his intent, and then he acted on his statement, and he lived with her. So that's acceptable. When is a mimer called an unacceptable mimer? Not so kosher? A number of scenarios. A, before the mimer, either this Yavam or one of his brothers gave a get to this Yavama, or one of the deceased brothers' other wives, or performed chalitza with her. So that messes it up. B, either he or one of his brothers engaged with one of the deceased brothers' other wives beforehand. C, after the mimer, either this Yavam or one of his brothers gave a get to this Yavam or one of the deceased brothers' other wives, or performed chalitza with her. Again, that messes it up. D, he or one of the brothers engaged with one of the deceased brothers' other wives, or gave them a mimer. So you can't give to 2 women. You can only marry 1, not 2. One of his brothers gave a mimer or engaged with the Yavama to whom he gave the mimer. So A, B, C, D, E, all of the above messes up the mimer. This term applies to both the mimer that preceded those years was mimer. Okay. To explain, if a Yavam, A, 7, gave a get or performed chalitza with his Yavama, and afterwards he or one of his brothers gave her or another of his brothers' wives a mimer, or B, he entered into relations with her or gave her a mimer, and then he or one of his brothers gave another of his brothers' wives a mimer or entered in relation with her, the mimer is unacceptable. You can only do it with 1. Even if he has 20 wives, you can only do Yibum or Chalitza with 1, and all the others are freed from any connection once it is done with 1. You cannot do it with 2. We learned in the first chapter last Thursday, if you recall, let's say he had if there were different brothers, let's say two brothers died, he could then marry both widows. But he may not marry two widows of the same brother. We did that on Thursday. Let's go to 8. So, we may conclude whether a mimer was preceded by another mimer, a get, a chalitza, or sexual, or whether any of these acts preceded a mimer, the mimer is unacceptable. So the way you do it is you give mimer, you state your intent to marry her, you then live with her, and that's kosher. Anything else, other variations, are not so kosher. The only exception when a yavam gives a mimer and enters into sexual relation with the yavama after the mimer, this follows the dictates of the law. This is kosher. This is the way it's meant to be in the first instance. When a yavam, and number 9, when a yavam enters sexual relation with his yavam at the outset or after giving her a mimer and nothing else preceded the relation is referred to as acceptable. That's good. That's the way you do it. You live with her, that means you're getting married to her. If A, mimer from one of his brothers was given to this yavama, so another brother said he's going to marry her, or B, a get was given to this yavama, or one of the other wives, or C, a mimer was given by this yavam or one of his brothers to one of the other wives before this yavam and the yavama entered in the relations, then it's unacceptable because you're messing around. You're telling one widow you're going to marry her, and then you marry the other. That's not right. 10. When the yavam performs chalitza with his yavama at the outset, without any other activity preceding it, that's a superior chalitza. So chalitza ma'ula. That's the way you do it. He dies, now you have to make a decision. You want to marry her, or you want to give a chalitza? Those are the choices. Get doesn't come into it at this point, as we discussed previously. So if you don't do anything else, you don't mess around, you don't say you're going to marry him, you just do chalitza, 100% fine, a superior chalitza. If, however, the chalitza was preceded by a get or a mimer, so you give her a get, there's no point in giving a get. You're not married to her. Why are you giving a get? It's ridiculous. Or you make a statement of intent that you're going to marry her, and then you give her chalitza. That's also contradictory. This then is referred to as an inferior chalitza. It'll still be kosher, but it's not ideal by any means. 11. When there are many yavamot coming from one household, many widows. The guy who died had a number of wives and still died childless, and he has a brother. After one of them has entered into accept a relation before the chalitza, all are permitted to marry other men, and any obligation to the yavam is removed. Okay, so there's a brother-in-law. There's maybe many wives, many widows. If he performs yibum, he marries one, or he gives chalitza to one, then the bond has been severed between the late brother's family and the widows, and all the widows can then go and marry other men of their choice. If one of them entered into unacceptable relations or was given an unacceptable mimer, all the wives are forbidden to perform yibum. The woman who entered into relations or who received the mimer must be divorced with a get because it wasn't done properly. In addition, each one of them is required to perform chalitza to be permitted to marry another man. The guy really messed up. Normally, one chalitza to one widow is sufficient to free everybody. Here, they all have to have chalitza because unacceptable relations do not remove a yavama's obligation to her yava. 12. If one of the wives performs an inferior chalitza, she is permitted to marry another man, but the deceased's other wives remain forbidden to marry unless they too perform chalitza, or unless all the brothers perform chalitza with the one who performed the inferior chalitza. Because an inferior chalitza, if you didn't do it correctly, does not remove the obligation of yibum from this household until the yavama who performed the inferior chalitza performs chalitza with all the brothers, or all the deceased wives perform chalitza. So they're really complicating it by messing up and not following the instructions clearly. They're making their lives difficult for no good reason. 13. Whenever Yavama engages in sexual relation with her Yavam, they are then properly married. They don't need a chuppah, as I said. Just living together as man and wife means he has acquired her as a wife. Now they don't like each other. Now she needs a get. Before, there's no get. Before, it's chalitza. Once they're married, now they need a get. Similarly, regardless of whether you engage in relation, even if a Yavam or his brother engage with another one, he must divorce the woman with a get, or these relations affect the establishment of a marriage bond. So they didn't do a proper yibum, and the one did do a proper yibum, so therefore he needs to do a get if they decide to separate. Similarly, when a Yavam is given a mimer, whether an acceptable mimer or unacceptable, a get is required because of the mimer. To undo the statement of intent, the declaration that he's going to marry her, if he changes his mind, he has to give a get. But she'll still need chalitza then to marry a stranger, as we said before. 14, as mentioned, the get does not dissolve the Yavam's connection with the Yavama. Him and her are still bonded. Similarly, a mimer does not acquire her as a wife in a complete way. It's only sexual related. They have to live together as man and wife that establishes the marriage bond properly. And only chalitza will dissolve the connection properly, not a get. Therefore, when a Yavama is given one get after another, or one mimer after another, there is an effect, but it's not a proper dissolution. When, however, another brother engages in relation with Yavama with whom a Yavam engages in relations, or performs chalitza with the Yavama with whom a Yavam performs chalitza, the second relations or the second chalitza are of no consequence. So if one married her already, then nobody else has any business touching her. If one gave her chalitza, the bond is severed between her and her late husband's family and their brothers, and they have no business having any more relations. 15, meaning that when a Yavam gives a get to a Yavama and afterwards gives a get to another one of the wives, he is forbidden to marry the relatives of both women. It's as if he did indeed divorce them, even though he was meant to give chalitza, but the get does have an effect. Similarly, when two Yavamim, two brothers, give two gittin, two divorces, to one Yavama, one after the other, she's considered to have been divorced by both of them. So they are both forbidden to marry her relatives. Still, one of them has to perform chalitza with her to allow her to marry a stranger. Similarly, if a Yavam gives a get to his Yavama and then his brother gives a get to another one of the wives, each brother is forbidden to marry the relatives of the ones whom he gave a get. It does have an effect, even though it's not necessary, but it does have an effect if you did it. Similarly, if two brothers each gave a mimer, one after the other, each one must give a get as explained. So two people cannot marry the same woman, and they must both give the get. When, however, a Yavam performs chalitza with his Yavama, so now this severance between the families and her has taken place, and then afterwards, either he or his brother perform chalitza with another deceased wife, which is not necessary because one chalitza with one wife does it all, or two Yavamim perform chalitza with the same Yavama, the second chalitza is of no consequence, and the brother who performed it is not forbidden to marry the woman's relatives. It's just as he performed chalitza with another woman who is under no obligation to him. Let's say he goes over to a strange woman and makes chalitza. It's irrelevant. It's a waste of time and it's a complete waste of time because chalitza is not indicated there. Similarly, if his brother gave a get to this Yavama or another wife, it's of no consequence once she's already had chalitza. Nor is it of consequence when we get a woman a mimer or engage relations with her. Once the brother engaged relations with her, he acquired her as his wife in a complete manner, and a married woman cannot be consecrated by another man. You go over to a married woman and you put a ring on her finger in front of two witnesses and say, behold, you are consecrated to me according to the law of Moses in Israel, it's bobamaisis. It's a waste of time. It's completely irrelevant and ineffective. She's a married woman and you cannot marry her. You go to your mother or your sister and put a ring on her and you say the magic words, it's completely ineffective. You cannot marry your mother or your sister. Likewise, you cannot marry a married woman. So if she has already had yibum with one of the brothers, another brother, it's finished. It's out of it. No other brother can have any connection to her now. If, however, one of the brothers gave mimer, he declared his intent to one of the other wives or engaged in relations with her, then he has to release her with a get, as we said before. 17. Following rules apply when two yevamim, two of the brothers-in-law, perform yibum with two yevamot, two of the widows, from the same household, the same guy. So one guy was married, he had more than one wife, he died childless, he has two wives now, and he has two brothers, and each brother picks a wife. You're not supposed to do that, that's wrong. So normally we would say, okay, the first guy who did it stays married to the first woman, and the other guy has to give a get. But we don't know who did it first, and we have no way of knowing. It's not known who performed yibum first, and they can't establish without a doubt as to who it was. In that case, both should divorce the women with gittin, plural of get, and then the women can marry other men, but they're prohibited to these guys, to the brothers-in-law. Consequently, when Reuven, one of the brothers-in-law, lived in Jerusalem, Reuven is the guy who died, childless. He lived in Jerusalem. Now he had two wives, one living in Akko, one living in Tyre, and two brothers, Shimon who lived in Akko and Levi who lived in Tyre. If there's a report that Reuven died, according to law, it will be proper for neither brother to perform yibum until he finds out what did the other brother do. Because if the other brother performed yibum, then he's married to the widow, and everybody else is forbidden to anyone else. It's finished. If one of the brothers, however, does perform yibum, and we don't know if another brother in a different town did it, or when he did it, he's not forced to divorce his wife until it's determined that his other brother performed yibum first before him. If one brother desired to perform chalitza without waiting to see what his other brother did, he is not prevented from doing so. He may perform chalitza. Now, obviously, the menschliche thing to do is for the brothers to communicate and say, okay, guys, our brother died, he has a wife or two, whatever. Either one of us has to marry one of the widows, or one of us has to give chalitza to one of the widows to permit them to marry other people. If they don't, if it's a bit of a dysfunctional family, maybe there's a big faribel and the brothers don't talk to each other, which is shocking, but unfortunately happens. So this one gets married, and this one gets married, and this one does chalitza, and you don't know who did it first, and it's a big balagan because they didn't talk to each other. 18. When a yavam who is below the age of majority, he's not bar mitzvah, but he's over 9 years and 1 day old, meaning he already had his 9th birthday. 9 years and 1 day old means that it's on his 9th Hebrew birthday. You know, when you're bar mitzvah, they tell you when you're 13 years and 1 day. But that actually means, people don't know this, 13 years and 1 day means on your 13th Hebrew birthday, you are 13 years and 1 day. Because when your birthday comes, you have now completed 13 full years. So your birthday is now the first day of your 14th year. So your Hebrew birth, your bar mitzvah in Hebrew is your 13th Hebrew birthday. You are then 13 years and 1 day. So if a kid a boy who's under bar mitzvah, but he just turned 9, on his 9th Hebrew birthday, he's 9 years and 1 day old, and he has relations. He's a very mature young man, and he has intimate relations with the Yavama, the widow, this is equivalent to mimer of an adult. It's as if an adult said he's going to marry her. The Yavama is not acquired as a wife in a complete manner. Why? Because he's under bar mitzvah. I told you the story in my late Zayda's family last Thursday, right? About the woman whose husband died and she had to wait quite a few years for the little brother-in-law to become bar mitzvah. When a Yavam who's below the age of majority but more than 9 years old gives a mimer at the outset, he says he's going to marry her, it's effective, and causes the Yavama to be forbidden to his brothers who are past majority. Now that is ridiculous and a really bad mistake. If there are brothers-in-law who are over bar mitzvah, and a kid under bar mitzvah makes a mimer declaration of intent to marry her, he's now messed it up. She's now going to have to wait for him to become bar mitzvah. That is pathetic. But these things happen. People do foolish things. They don't know. So if a Yavam below the age of bar mitzvah, but more than 9, gives mimer, he says he's going to marry her, it's effective enough, can't marry her yet till he's bar mitzvah, but it's effective enough to cause the Yavama to be forbidden to his brothers who are past majority. They can no longer marry her. They could have married her tomorrow. Now she has to wait a couple of years, 4 years, till this 9-year-old turns bar mitzvah to either marry him or get chalitza from him. If, however, he gives the mimer after then okay. If another brother did it first, that's no problem. Similarly, a get that this kid gives or chalitza that he reforms is of no consequence. Under bar mitzvah has no consequence. 19. I've been going quickly, but I'm going to have to go even more quickly now. We're running out of time. 19, he explains, if a kid who's 9 years old engages in relations with the Yavama or gives a mimer, he disqualifies her from Yibum with the other brothers. If one of the older brothers who were over bar mitzvah then gave her mimer, or this one below bar mitzvah gives another wife mimer, it's of no consequence, and it does not cause the Yavama to be forbidden to his elder brother. If, however, the little kid brother, who's 9 years old, if he's under 9, then whatever he does is completely meaningless. But if he's over 9, which means halachically we believe he's capable of intimacy, then he can mess things up. So if he's over 9 but below bar mitzvah and he engaged in relations with her or any of the other wives, he causes the Yavama to be forbidden to the elder brother, as we said before. 20. If he's plus 9 and minus 13 and has relations, and then one of the older brothers over bar mitzvah and also entered in relation with her, or performed chalitza with her, or gave her a get, he disqualifies the minor from marrying the Yavama. Similarly, if the minor has engaged in relations with another of the wives, or another brother who's also below bar mitzvah but over 9, has engaged in relation with this woman or with another one of the wives, the woman with whom the first brother originally engaged relations is disqualified from marrying him, as is the ruling whenever 2 maimorim are given one after the other. 21. When a Yavam below majority but over 9 engages in relation with her and then does not engage with her again until after he attains majority, he's required to give her a get because he had relations with her, so that has some effect. And now he has to perform chalitza. The get is necessary because the relations in which he engaged are considered equivalent to a mimer. The chalitza is necessary in order to permit the woman to marry another man, for she did not engage in relations that establish a complete marriage bond. If her Yavam engaged in relation with her after he attained majority, all that is required to enable to marry another man is a get. So he should not have engaged in relations with her at the age of 9 or 10 or 11 or 12. And if he did, he messes it up. And when he turns bar mitzvah, he cannot marry her because he already messed it up. He has to give her chalitza then. 22. A yavam is below majority, but more than 9. The same applies to a 20-year-old brother-in-law who has not manifested signs of physical maturity, meaning he has not grown any hair on his face or his underarms, or mainly any pubic hair. That is a sign of, halachically, for a bar mitzvah boy to be 100% bar mitzvah, he has to have sprouted a minimum of 2 pubic hairs. Otherwise, we assume if he's 13, he has. But if there's something serious like this, to know if he can give chalitza, we would have to actually do a medical examination. A boy of 20 who has not manifested signs of physical maturity, but has also not manifested physical signs of impotency, so he's the same as a 9-year-old who's below bar mitzvah. As explained, both the consecration of a girl below the age of majority who is fit to leave her husband with the right of miyun, she can decline to be married to him, and the consecration of a girl who is a deaf mute are rabbinic institutions. The rabbis allowed them to be married, whether they're under bat mitzvah or they're deaf mutes. Nevertheless, there are 2 different types of ordinances. The consecration of a minor was ordained so that men will not relate to her in an unrestrained manner, so she will not be exploited and abused. She'll have a husband who'll look after her, be her guardian. Her consecration is thus tentative until she becomes 12. Consecrating, marrying a deaf mute girl was permitted for a different reason, so that she will not remain unmarried forever, because she's not on top of the list, in the marketplace. So if somebody wants to marry her, we allow it. 24, if by contrast the deceased was married to a deaf mute and a minor, engaging in a relation, one does not free the other of her obligation. So that's to do with Yibum. What is the alternative? The minor should be instructed to nullify her marriage through miyun. As long as she's still a minor, she can declare she doesn't want to be married to this guy anymore, and the marriage is nullified. And the yavam should marry the deaf mute. If he desires to divorce her, he may write a get for her after they engage in relations, and then she can marry another man. He can't do chalitza with her because it's problematic halachically, because we don't know if she's 100% of sound mind. 25, if one of the deceased wives was mentally competent and one was a deaf mute, engaging in relations with a mentally competent woman or performing chalitza with her will free the deaf mute of any obligations. However, engaging in relation with a deaf mute does not free the mentally competent woman from her obligation, because the consecration of the deaf mute is rabbinic and yibum and chalitza are biblical. Similar laws apply. One of the deceased wives was above majority, one was a minor. Engaging in relation with the one who is over 12, or chalitza, will free the minor from any obligations. Vice versa does not. 26. If both the deceased wives were minors who are entitled to absorb their obligation through me, and they can just do a verbal declaration to nullify their marriages if they're under bat mitzvah. If the yavam engaged in relation with one of them, and then he or one of the brothers engaged in relation with the other, this does not disqualify the marriage to the first. Nevertheless, we should instruct the second one to dissolve a marriage to a miyun. He should then maintain his marriage with the minor yavam with whom he engaged in relations first. So that's kosher. 27, similar laws apply if the deceased was married to a minor and a deaf mute. They're both halachically problematic by biblical law. If he first enters in relation with the minor and then he or one of the others with a deaf mute, this does not disqualify the marriage to the minor. The deaf mute, however, who came second, must be divorced via a get. Explanation being that the relationship with the minor are superior halachically to relationship with the deaf mute. For there will be a time in a year or two, whenever she turns bat mitzvah, she will be fit to enter into a marriage bond that is 100% biblically acceptable. Whereas a deaf mute, unless she gets a cure for her being a deaf mute, will never be able to have a proper biblical marriage. So therefore, that's a preferable relationship. 28. If the Yavam first entered as a deaf mute, which he shouldn't have, and then he or another brother engaged in a relation with a minor, this disqualifies the marriage to the deaf mute. This messes it up. We should instruct the minor to dissolve a marriage to miyun, and the deaf mute girl must be divorced with a get. 29. If the deceased was married to a mentally competent woman and a deaf mute, if the Yavam engaged in a relation with the mentally competent, then he this does not disqualify the marriage to the mentally competent woman. The deaf mute must be divorced via get. But if he first engages with a deaf mute, which he shouldn't have, and then he or they with the mentally competent woman, this disqualifies the marriage to the deaf mute, because the one is rabbinic, the one is biblical. And the deaf mute woman will have to be divorced with a get, and the mentally competent woman should receive both a get and then chalitza. Finally, number 30. Fine was applied to the deceased if the deceased was married to a woman past the age of majority and also to a ketana below the age of majority, 2 wives, 1 major, 1 minor. If the Yavam first entered relation with a woman past majority, and then he or another one with the minor, it does not disqualify the marriage to the older woman. We should, however, instruct the minor to dissolve her marriage through miyun, the verbal declaration to nullify it. But if he mistakenly first enters into relations with the minor and then with the woman past majority, we should instruct the minor to dissolve her marriage through miyun, a verbal annulment, and he should remain married to the woman who's past bat mitzvah. The rationale being that relations with her establish a fully binding marriage bond, whereas with the minor, it is not 100% ideal. I'm sorry for having to go through this very, very quickly, but a lot to get through, and I've got to run. Very quickly, if there's any questions, but I really have to get cracking somewhere else. I'll give you a
Thanks,
moment.
Rabbi.
Any questions?
No questions.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Okay.
Cheers. Cheers all.
Okay.
Cheers
God
all.
bless. All the best.
Thank
Have a
you.
good week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye all.
bye.
Bye. Cheers, David.